The United States was not the only country to have a civil war. Mexico had a civil war along with being invaded by France around the same time period, and that war has a lot to do with the Cinco de Mayo celebration that we hold today. Mexico was in a lot of debt, and they couldn't pay it off. President Benito Juarez suspended all debt payments in 1861, and their foreign creditors, France, Spain, Britain, were very angry about this. In January of 1862, British, Spanish, and French fleets showed up off the coast of Mexico to try to pressure them into making their payments. Napoleon III, the French emperor, decided to go farther. He decided to take over Mexico. He wanted a friendly Mexican government so that he could expand his trade, and he also needed a lot of silver to finance his empire, and Mexico has a lot of silver mines. The French Navy took Campeche on February 27, 1862, and the French army arrived later on March 5th. So this is clearly a violation of the Monroe Doctrine, in which the U.S. told Europe not to take over areas in North or South America. Americans, however, were too busy killing each other in the Civil War to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. It is at the Battle of Puebla that we get the Cinco de Mayo from. On May 5, 1862, a smaller Mexican force defeated a larger French force in the Battle of Puebla. President Juarez was so happy for a victory that he stated that the victory of Puebla should be a national holiday, but the victory did not stop the invasion, and in fact, the French would go on to take Puebla. The French put Puebla under siege, and they took it a year later on May 17, 1863. President Juarez had to flee the capital on May 31st, and he headed up to El Paso del Norte, or now Juarez, Mexico. After Mexico City was captured by the French in June of 1863, President Juarez established his government in exile in a place called Chihuahua. The French decided to put their own leader in. They named Maximilian I the Emperor of Mexico on April 10, 1864, and he was very forward-thinking on a lot of things. He favored a limited monarchy, he wanted to outlaw child labor, limit some working hours, and abolish serfdom among the Indians. Two days after Lee surrendered to Ulysses Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in the American Civil War, the Republican forces under Juarez gained a big victory at Tacambaro in Michoacan in April 11, 1865. Before long, Republican forces occupied most of the towns along the Rio Grande. To try to instill fear in the Republican forces, Emperor Maximilian I issued the Black Decree on October 3, 1865. He stated that any Mexican captured on the field of battle against imperial forces was subject to immediate execution. This did not have his desired effect. It made the Mexicans fight even harder against Maximilian. After the American Civil War ended, General Philip Sheridan, was sent to the American-Mexican border to warn the French that Americans were not happy with what they were doing down there. Secretary of State William Seward invoked the Monroe Doctrine by demanding that France leave Mexico. And to enforce this, the United States established a blockade with our Navy to stop the French from being able to reinforce their troops in Mexico. Because of this, Napoleon III announced the withdrawal of French forces beginning May 31st, 1866. They were gone by November, but Maximilian did not go with them. The emperor believed that he had support among the Mexican people and that they would keep him in office. He was wrong. Maximilian was captured by Republican forces on May of 1867. He was put on trial, sentenced to death, along with 2 of his generals, and they were executed in June of 1867. This is a famous painting of that execution that happened on June 19th, 1867. Mexico's Civil War was now over, and the Mexican Republic was restored. Benito Juarez was continued as president. He won another term in 1871, but he died in office in 1872. In Mexico, Benito Juarez is considered on the same level with Abraham Lincoln. They're both considered great liberators. Benito Juarez is considered the greatest president of Mexican history.